Today, we're going to be covering the first of the 5-step process in order to interview correctly. And that first step is understanding the structure of how to answer interview questions. When I used to interview initially, one of my biggest weaknesses was actually rambling, going on for too long, where I lost my train of thought, the interviewers didn't know where I was going with the question, and second of all, just being worked up over my nerves where I would get stuck on how to actually answer it. If that's you, don't have any fears, because what we're going to walk through is going to be very simple in how to actually answer the questions the right way. My name is Ariel Herrera with the AnalyticsAriel channel, where we bridge the gap between real estate and technology. This is a part of a 5-part series in order to interview correctly so that you can become a high income earner. So let's get started. Well, the first step in order to interview is to be able to answer questions correctly. And the process, the framework that we're going to follow is called the STAR method. Now, the way the STAR method works is that it's actually a 4-step process with each part of the acronym actually standing for something. So S is situation, T is for task, A is for action, and R is for result. By breaking out your answer into these individual steps, it makes it very easy for an interviewer to understand what you're talking about, the landscape of it, what you were asked to do, how you actually took action on it, and what the result was. So let me give you an example that I actually got asked pretty frequently in my undergrad as I was interviewing for several different companies. They would ask me, how do you work within a team? And could you give me an example of an instance where the team had some sort of disruption or people didn't get along, and how did you resolve it? So clearly, this is trying to gauge how well I work with a team, how I assess weaknesses, and how I'm able to respond to them. So let me give you an example of how I would answer that question. I was in a class in business econ where we had to work in a group of 4 different people, where this project actually was going to encompass 40% of our grade. So we really had to work closely together. Now, the issue was we had one person in the group who was just not holding up their end of the project. They would show up late to meetings, they would respond late to texts, and the quality of the work they were giving us just wasn't there. So the task that I had at hand was, how can we actually save this project before we can possibly get a bad grade? So I decided to actually sit down one-on-one for coffee with this individual who wasn't performing that well. And I was able to actually understand, just talking one-on-one, that they were a transfer student coming into Rutgers. And this was their first semester. This individual was pretty overwhelmed with how heavy their coursework was, as well as not really knowing anyone that they could call a friend here yet. So I was able to diagnose what the issue was of being overwhelmed. And I asked this individual, what do you feel is more of your strength in this project? We had them actually doing more presentation work, whereas this individual was better at writing. So I was doing the writing, and we actually swapped what we were doing. My teammates said, hey, if the writing from this individual doesn't come out correctly, you're responsible for it. So I took on that responsibility by trusting this individual and giving them the backing that I knew that they could pull this off. And as a result, not only was I able to help this individual become an important part of our project, they did a very good job to identify their strength, and we were able to get an A on the project. So you see how I did that? Basically mapped out the situation, which was working on a project. Someone wasn't actually holding up their part. The task was for me to understand why they weren't and how we can actually better our team. The action was identifying the strength that this person had and swapping out what they had to do, the deliverable, and the result was that we were able to get an A. And it also shows my humility and that I was able to sit down with this person one-on-one and look at them as an individual versus just solely a contributor that wasn't contributing. So that's the essence of how you answer the STAR method. And don't worry if it sounds a little bit high level at first. I'm gonna actually show you how to document this, write down examples of your own so that you'll be able to answer any behavioral question that comes at you. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already yet, please subscribe.